the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Los Angeles Chargers 40-17. Seen the highlights this game. I mean, I have a lot of interesting things where you could you could argue both of these teams could make a Super Bowl in a way. But I mean, and I'm going to say it because I've not said it yet. Baker Mayfield's playing out of his mind this year. He's been I've hated Baker for a long time, being if it was Cleveland Browns and how he was, and I never really liked him coming out of the draft and everything like that. And I've never been that bothered about what he does. And I thought, he'll do all right with the Buccaneers and it will sort of will off. But man, he just plays well. He plays their style really well, and they've been helped tremendously by a player like Bucky Irving, who I don't remember there being a lot of hype around him in the draft. And he's 117 yards, 15 carries, no touchdowns on the day for him, but. Then, Mike Evans having a career day, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns, a player that we've said on this podcast is criminally underrated around the league and isn't talked about enough. And it's a Chargers team, I think that, in a year's time, this is a closer scoreline. I think they are still learning. And what I thought was noticeable about this, because I actually think these teams are incredibly similar, very, very similar in what style they want to play. They want to have rock hard defense, run the ball mostly, but have the skill players to be able to throw it over the top. The only difference is that Bucs have Mike Evans and players of that caliber, and Justin Herbert has Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston, and Josh Palmer. And I think all three are good wide receivers, but there's not a true one there, is there, really, out of these guys? And I think Herbert is just missing. It's stupid because he had it and it didn't work when they were there, but he's missing Keenan Allen. He is missing someone like that. Almost someone like Amari Cooper would be perfect in this scenario, because I think Keenan's just maybe not quite the safer hands as Amari Cooper is. But yeah, what did you make of this game?
Surprising. I'm really surprised by the
scoreline. I was
scoreline. Yeah, really shocked by that. I wasn't expecting the Chargers to have 40 points put up against them. This defense that has been so good all season really struggled, and they struggled against the run and the pass. So they really did struggle with it. So that was the biggest takeaway, was just how much. And I feel like that was almost more. It was surprising because I felt like the Chargers defense has been good all season, but not only that, I was surprised that the Bucs managed to really do it and be able to put as many points as they did up on them. When it comes to the Chargers, I think they're definitely a run first team, and the J.K. Dobbins injury has really killed them. It's really caused a lot of problems. Gus Edwards just isn't doing it, hasn't done it this year.
They had on 8 carries.
Yeah. So it was a real struggle for them. And Kimani Vidal is just I think he was a 5th round, 6th round pick rookie. So you can't expect too much from him in that respect. I really like Lad McConkey. I think he's really good.
I agree. I
don't think he's necessarily gonna become Cooper Kupp, but I think he has the potential to get to that point. But he's that kind of wide receiver, and I think you need a kind of a big, strong outside, going down the numbers on the outside kind of wide receiver. And as you said, one of the massive difference makers here was Mike Evans, and that's exactly who you need on the Chargers side.
I think also he needs I completely agree. I think he's lacking the 2 years of experience you need to get that level as well, which he will eventually get there, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's, as you say, that will just be time with McConkey, that he will get better and stuff like that. Quentin Johnston, although he has improved, isn't Mike Evans and probably never will be, and that's the real issue. So I think the Chargers they need to I think they've still got a very good chance of ending up in the playoffs. I don't think there's they've got the number 7 seed at the moment. They're 2 games ahead of the Colts. I don't see that changing. So I think they're going to get in the playoffs, which for the first season under Harbour is a hell of a good return. So I think that they've done well, and they need to somehow either bring in free agency, which is probably going to be difficult this year because there's not that much, but if not through free agency, then as a draft pick, they need to bring in another wide receiver who they feel is going to be that sort of like big bodied wide receiver, AJ Brown type player that can.
Problem is they won't have a pick for someone like a Tetero McMillan.
No, they won't. So they won't be able to get either of the top two. But there are guys out there that they'll
in
be
the draft
able
we're
to
talking
go
about
for.
here for anyone who doesn't know who Tetero McMillan is.
So there will be guys out there that they will be able to go for who will be a bit more like that. But at the moment, it's because of where they're going to be picking, it's going to be tough to get a real top quality one. And then from the Bucks' point of view, I think that actually something that's sort of happened in the last couple of weeks has been the emergence of Jalen McMillan. And that has kind of replaced Chris Godwin. I think that was the issue. We were a little bit like, yeah, they've got Mike Evans, but okay, Cade Otton's okay, but there's not really much behind it. Jalen McMillan's had 3 touchdowns now in 2 weeks, and he's putting up the yards as well. So I think that has really helped them, because the thing with Mike Evans is, as great as he is, he can't do it all by himself. So it's like having McMillan there, it's another passing threat. They're moving the ball more. Then obviously, as we always know, if you can get the pass going, that gets the run going, and vice versa. And as you said, Bucky Irvin and Rashad White was solid as well. But like Bucky Irvin has really sort of like turned up in the last sort of month. And yeah, they just look really, really good. And they've got, that now it would be surprising if they didn't win this division now, because the Falcons just haven't been what we thought they were going to be. And
I sort of weirdly go,
yeah,
the Chargers feel like they want to be a bit like the Bucks, and they feel very similar. And then the Bucks almost feel like very similar to Green Bay as well. Like when you're looking at the NFC, AFC in the playoff sort of race, Green Bay and Tampa are sort of similar in that, like, good defenses, good run game. Again, Green Bay doesn't have a star in terms of like Mike Evans, but they have 3 incredibly good wide receivers, decent tight end play, and then a quarterback who is good but has that. It is the guns. Baker's still got a pick in this game. Baker is still susceptible to making some errors, just like Jordan Love is with Green Bay. And is that maybe what ultimately holds both of them teams back, I suppose, with an NFC playoff path?
I mean, it probably does. They're both sort of like, it's almost like there's tiers, isn't there, in the NFC when you look at it? It feels very much like you've got the Lions and the Eagles are the sort of top tier. And then once you get past that, you're sort of looking, I think the Bucks are one. I think the Rams, I think, is another one that's actually quite similar. The difference is that I would say that Puka's probably of a better quality than basically all the number ones on the other teams. But I think the Bucks, I think the Rams, I think the Packers, probably the Vikings as well, because I think you've kind of got them 4 that are kind of next, and then after that you've got the Commanders, who are kind of like, then they're not quite, they're ironically they're rebuilding, but they're trying to win at the same time. And then you've kind of got the rest, where it's almost like they're a bit like they're close, they're not far off of it, like the Seahawks and the Cardinals and teams like that, but they're not quite playoff teams at the moment. So I think it is. The Bucks are probably going to be the 3 or 4 seed based on where they're going to be. They're going to end up playing the Vikings or the Packers. It is where it feels like that's what's going to happen at the moment.
And if I'm honest with you, when I look at both of them games, coin flip. Both.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I think the Packers kind of have. I feel like Jordan Love has the potential to really go off, but then at the same time, so does Baker Mayfield. This is the thing. So it is really difficult. I mean, you look at Baker's stats for the season, and there's only Lamar and Joe Burrow that's thrown more passing touchdowns than him, but he's thrown 14 interceptions. which is like, it's a lot. I think it's the no, Kirk Cousins has had the most on the season, but he's only missing it by one. So it's been he is a bit like that. Love is a similar one, as you say, and Stafford is another one who's quite up for throwing an interception every now and then. And yeah, it's good. I think it's going to be quite interesting.
Them games and them matchups that you're saying about, exciting stuff.
Yeah,
really
yeah,
exciting.
absolutely.
Like, I can imagine all them games being a game that I'm going to certainly watch all the games anyway in the playoffs. But for the neutral, I think most of them matchups you go like, I want to watch that. Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson against Baker and Mike Evans, and then both of them really good. Vikings so good at turning the ball over. Bucks are really solid defense, and then the Packers and Bucks as well. And then the Packers and Vikings obviously writes its own narrative, being divisional rivals as well. Like I feel like the AFC's been sort of the flag bearer for football for the last few years with excitement, and yet you could argue, I think you could definitely say the NFC this year is feeling more sort of more dominant teams in a way, or more exciting teams in a way. So
I think they're exciting because they're kind of up and coming.
Yeah, and
as well. I think that's the difference. Yeah, I think that's why they're kind of excited, and they do feel quite close in like you say, in sort of standard between the teams. Whereas I think with the AFC, you kind of, I do still feel like, I mean, if the Lions can get some of their guys back, I do still think it's Lions and Eagles, and that's the end of it. So I think they'll all just end up beating each other, but them two will be the two in the championship. But when it comes to the AFC, obviously, there are teams like, you do have the Chargers and the Broncos that are kind of like looking as though they're sort of trying to work it out, trying to come up and get good again. But it does kind of feel like some of these other teams maybe do have the potential to, it doesn't feel quite as exciting because, you've got the Chiefs, the Bills, who feel, I know the Chiefs have been bad, but when it comes to the playoffs, we all know what they do. And it just kind of feels like, oh, well, they'll just go off and win it all, sort of thing. And that's the only downside with the AFC.
I think there's a little bit of a lack of like consistency with the AFC. The Steelers not overly consistent, though, have been good the last few weeks, not overly consistent. Ravens, huge one, that's not been overly consistent. The Chiefs, though consistent in winning, not exactly consistent in their play. So it's a tough one. Texans, not consistent at all.
So you think, no, that's because like the Bengals, Dolphins could go out and beat anyone on their day? With the NFC, I feel like the lower teams just aren't in that position. No.
Exactly. It'll make for a hot playoff race. I'm very much excited the next few weeks of football. We'll move to